Good evening. My name is Janelle Weekly, and I'm the Photographic Collections Manager at the Arizona State Museum. I want to welcome you to this program, coming to you from the Arizona State Museum on the campus of the University of Arizona. Both are situated on land that has always been home to Indigenous peoples. Today, the greater Tucson area is home to the O'odham and Pasquayaqui. Tonight's talk is part of a series of programs presented in conjunction with Arizona State Museum's exhibit, Light Handlers, Indigenous Photographers in the Southwest. The exhibit is a culmination of our initiative to acquire work by contemporary Indigenous photographers. With the help of a generous grant from the Mellon Foundation, we have been able to do just that over the past year or so, and you can see all our acquisitions in the exhibit, which runs through July 20th. When the selection committee started looking for photographs to purchase with the Mellon Foundation funds, a colleague at the Tohono O'odham Community College posted about our search on Facebook. Charnelle Leslie was one of the first to contact us about her photography. After she shared some examples of her work, we chose 2 prints for the collection. Charnelle, also known as Nellie, originally wanted to study music or writing in college. She chose photography after talking with recruiters from the Art Institute of Phoenix about the programs they offered. This began her journey of discovering her talents to become the artist she knew was inside her. Once she became comfortable behind the lens and was set free from the inside a studio, the world became her endless subject. Leslie thrives on photojournalism. She states, "I sit in one spot and wait for the right second to capture an image that will stay immortalized while time keeps passing by." Charnelle was mostly raised in Polaca with her older sister. As a young girl, she spent a great deal of time outdoors, following her grandfather to his field or ranch. This is how she learned to find comfort in the quietness of the land. As her time in Phoenix grew, she longed for the quietness she knew she could escape to when the world became too loud. Making the 5-hour drive home always settles her nerves because she knows she will be home, surrounded by the land that has been there to uplift the spirits of all who've moved away. Her landscape photography is a love letter to the land that holds her secrets, tears, and joy. Tonight, Charnelle will tell us about the relationship the Hopi people have had with photography and how the landscape inspires her work. Please welcome Charnelle.
Hello. I'll be honest up front. I've been struggling with a cough lately, so if you see me drinking water or coughing, I apologize for that. My name is Charnelle Leslie. I go by Nellie, so organically I went with Nellie Leslie Photography because that's mostly what everybody has come to know me as, is Nellie, simply because that's just an easier name to remember. Um, once I started once I started landscape photography, I always wondered what the land looked like before. I can go on Google and find many photos that show the lifestyle, at least in the late 1800s or even before them, but it was not enough to satisfy me because nobody could quite capture what the land holds or means to a lot of us Hopi people. And the next slide is one of the very first images that you will find on Google once you type in Hopi tribe or Hopi people or just Hopi in general. And this is a pretty well-known, famous photo that everybody out here has seen. And with what I wanted to do with telling everybody about photo history is that there is much more to find than these photos. And the next slide shows the photographer who is responsible for all of these photos. His name is Edward Curtis, and he was sent out on a on mission, not just for the Hopi people, but in 1906, J.P. Morgan provided him with $75,000, which is currently equivalent to 2.5 million in today's money, to have him go out to the West and photograph all Native American people or tribes that he could find. Excuse me. And with these two slides, this is the famous potter Nampeo, who people don't, for some reason, when I look her up, people tend to forget she is a Tewa potter. She lives on the Hopi reservation, yes, but she is a Tewa potter. And I have a very small connection to her through my niece, but my niece is more related to Nampeo than I am. And on the other side, we have another very well-known famous photo of manas looking out from the land, from the top down to the bottom. And there has been many, many times where I've thought about recreating this photo with my nieces and my nephews, but looking more into it and seeing kind of how Edward Curtis talks about Native people is a product of his time, but also it's a slight problem based on this article that I was reading stating that at the time, from like the late 1800s, Native American people were wearing Western clothes at this point. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So this photo is another well-known photo that is seen. And the reason I brought up the way he talks about Native American people is the word he used a lot was primitive, and he didn't think that what was going on was, in a sense, progressive in his eyes because of the way we chose to live. And there's a photo that has to do with the Navajo collection that did kind of rub me the wrong way, in the sense that he titled it The Vanishing Race, which is not technically right, even though we were struggling with our population. The Navajo Nation today, as you could tell, is very populous, very big, and still very much here today. But that is a product of the time of the dwindling Native American population and, sorry, excuse me, of the population. And he thought he was doing us a service of photographing our people because he thought we were no longer going to be here. Which is very sad to think that there's a photographer who came in thinking he could also save us while trying to preserve our culture in photographs, which I know a lot of people are proud to have, proud to look back on and like, yes, this is what we look like way back when. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And even with these two photos, the photo on the left, he titled it Hopi Virgin, which I understand we used the word maiden, but you could tell she's a young girl. There was no need to use the word virgin because that's a little vulgar around, I would say, our culture, because we wouldn't call a girl straight a virgin. We would call her pure. She's a pure girl. And same way with the girl on the right was Hopi maiden, which is what the girl on the left should have also been labeled as, because she's a young girl, not quite a young lady like the lady on the right. Go ahead and go to the next slide. He also went and photographed so much of Hopi, which I contribute to the people knowing more about the village of Hopi than any other village, to my knowledge. And same way here, it's great to see the transition of this village, of what it used to be and what it is now. Even looking at these photos, putting them together, I had the chance to actually be in Walpi this past weekend because there is a ceremony going on, and I am very thankful and very grateful that I can see these kivas and be like, oh, I know who goes there. I know that's where my uncles, my tahas come from. I know the house on the very far right. I always look at it, I'm like, how does my large family fit in that house above the alley? Because I know that's our house. It's a landmarker for us to know that's our house. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that Edward Curtis does is one of my favorite things is how dramatic he is with the light. Looking at the picture in the middle, a picky house is typically a little on the darker side, um, but with him being able to flesh in this light and you can see what she is doing and how she is making her picky is very, very telling that he at least took his time to sit there and wait and capture at least these moments like this. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. And we're getting more into his Edward Curtis's lesser known photos. These ones are photos you kind of have to dig a little bit through because he's had a rather large collection. He added over 40 years. So these are, I think, I didn't double check quite yet, but these are snapshots after his more famous photos. Like the girls on the left standing in the alleyway is a little bit more known from that first photo because I have seen that photo spread throughout Facebook and also at different places out here. You can go to the next slide. And one of the main things I wanted to include within this Hopi photo essay is at the end or the beginning of First Mesa, the very first village that you come upon is Hano or Tewa. And these three women right here, they're Tewa girls. They're not Hopi girls, they're Tewa girls. We do have another tribe who we invited from New Mexico to come over and be our protectors. And we gave them that space at the end of the mesa. And they're integrated a lot within the Hopi culture. Like I said, my niece has a connection to Nampeo through her dad because he and his family is Tewa. So this is a big thing I wanted to include because there's a large group of Tewa people who are close to me, and I wanted to highlight them because they don't get highlighted as much because they're on the other end from Walpi. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Along with sticking with Hano, this is a Hopi Mashaijer dance, a Hopi buffalo dance. And the two images where you can see them dancing, this was my first time ever seeing an old photo taken at Tewa. And I wanted to point out in the larger photo, you can see on the roof, you see girls with their buns looking like little Mickey Mouse. And with that, when the girls went through their grinding ceremony and earned their sideburns, because we cut our sideburns here once we do grinding, they would go out to dances like this with their hairs up, with their sideburns cut, letting people know that they're young ladies, they're ready to be married, and they're just showing themselves off to whoever would like to marry them. But the marriage in a Hopi and Tewa setting is very serious. It's a very long process. So trying to find a husband in both cultures is something very important because I have been told you need to be careful which husband you choose because we believe that once you pass on, you go back to your same husband. So as a girl, I've always been told to be careful who I bring home because this culture is very important. It's not easy to take in. And also right above the smaller picture of the buffalo dancers, I want to say that's Tewa, but I also want to say it might be Somopovi or Araibi. But it's just showing women plastering because we have to keep our stone houses up. And the best way we can do that is plastering with mud. And that's just a small thing I wanted to throw in there is that's how our houses have stood for such a long time is constant plastering over our rock houses. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So that ends our time with Edward Curtis, which is fine because I am more excited to show everybody Milton Snow's catalog because I was so thrilled and excited to see my people shown in a way that I know them not something in history, not something that I can't quite touch or like kind of have a disconnect from. Milton Snow, I feel like does a wonderful job in showing the Hopi Reservation from 1944 to 1952, which unfortunately for me, the only person I could have asked about that time has passed. My great grandmother, who I knew would really enjoy seeing these photos because I have shown my presentation to a couple other of my grandmas and seeing their face light up like, oh yeah, that's how it was back then. That's what we did. So seeing their faces light up makes me excited to show more people what it was more of a realistic lifestyle for my people back then and today, because it doesn't feel too different. Time's different, but fundamentally it still feels the same. Go ahead and head to the next slide. Um, what I wanted to start off with is, for me, I have been told constantly by my grandmas, my moms, and all of them that what is important is school. Um, interestingly enough, my grandmas and them have been sent to boarding schools, but for their younger educations, they went to day schools out here on the reservation. This photo is showing kids currently walking the trail up to the village of Sumopuvi after they got done with the day of school. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a photo from up top, which I'm assuming would be the parents' view of them watching their kids head down to go to school, watching them go off and be out for the day. And this is Sumopuvi Day School. It's no longer around. These pictures are the only way I have ever seen this school. I knew it existed, but I don't have access to get back there. Um, but this school was used more than just a school for kids. It was also a place where the ladies could go down and use the facilities down there. Go ahead and head to the next slide. Um, and the man standing next to the bell would be ringing the bell, and here comes the kids coming down the Mesa Way, getting ready to go to school. And it's very interesting because this is exactly what my grandma would tell me. We would run down the Mesa. She said when it was winter time, they would run down, leave their coats somewhere, and then come back for them, or summertime, I'm sorry. And go ahead and go to the next slide. And what's really interesting is when we think of our certain grandparents going to school, I know a lot of us think of boarding schools and the very horrific history that's with it. But I think that a lot of my Hopi people, in a sense, got lucky because we didn't get moved from our reservation. Well, we're on the reservation, but we didn't get moved from our homeland. And this is another example of where I think we got lucky of parents got to send their kids down to the day school, which they can still watch them from the top to the bottom, watch them come home and stuff like that. And it's a very nice schoolyard, considering what it could look like. But go ahead and go to the next slide. And even this made my heart very happy to see these are somebody's grandma or great grandma or grandpa in their youth, getting to see them play on the swings, getting to see them, enjoy the life of being a kid that all of us get the chance to be. And like I said, I think we're very, very fortunate that a good amount of our kids got to stay here and got to continuously be home. The schools, there, as far as I know at this time, there was about 3 day schools, I believe, and a high school. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. This would be the high school. This is Oraibi High School. It's still standing today, but today it is currently the Hopi Day School. That is an elementary school that goes from grades K to 6, I believe. But before it was a high school. And like I said, I showed this to my grandma. and she said this is her high school. She went to this school. Kids who lived in Oraibi, New Oraibi, they got to walk to school. Like my grandma living in Palaka, she had to stay at the dormitories, which is also still standing, but it's currently like staff housing, I believe she said. Go ahead and go to the next photo. This is the class of 1944. These are all the students that attended there from that year. Faculty and everybody, if anybody from who's from out here who has parents or grandparents or anybody who went to Oraibi High School in 1944, here's your chance to see them in their younger years. And um, it's very heartwarming to know that these kids got to stay home with their parents while others didn't have the same fortunate fate. You can head to the next slide. And I say fortunate because these kids, the photos I have seen, they're very happy. They're thrilled to be there. They get to play with a donkey. They get to be out, and they know at least at the end of the day or the week, they're going back home. So in that sense, I always consider my tribe lucky in that way. You can head to the next slide. And just like this, like I said, they had dormitories. So it was always one bed and two bunk beds and a desk. So you just have boys being boys, nothing crazy. Your friend needs a haircut. All right, sit down. Let me go ahead and give you a haircut. And go ahead and go to the next slide. Um, I also very much love this because this is a photo I can hear. I can hear like my nieces or even myself or my crazy aunties also laughing because this is just a very much great representation of what it means to be a Hopi girl. You just get to sit there and laugh and joke and have the time of your life because usually our day is very busy, filled with a lot of stuff. So when we do get the chance to sit down for a moment, this is what a lot of Hopi ladies do, is they sit there and they just chit chat and laugh and just joke around. And it's very rewarding to see nothing has changed in that sense that Hopi ladies still love to gossip no matter what time of history it is. Yeah, go ahead and go to the next one. And I love this photo composition wise because she is sitting there just stirring a bowl of whatever. And it's very much, I've been told too, don't sit on the table. So she herself is showing being a little rebellious in that sense, but it's also very nice to see if you look behind her, it's a poster of cooking for school. And one thing that I know a lot of my grandmas talk about is home ec and how, like what they learned in home ec and how they continue to kind of use those same techniques that they learned in home ec. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this one was taken, I believe, at Kings Canyon Boarding School, and this is a student council meeting. And that also blew my mind, like, how long has student council been a thing for high school? And look at all of these kids raising their hands, being there for StuCo. When I was in high school, there wasn't even this many kids running for student council. So you can also see their decor. They have what would be a dress hanging up on the back, on the wall. And that is also very identifying as this time period where they hung up a lot of their clothes on the walls, either for decoration or to just keep them clean. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is also at King's, but this is a beginner's class. So these are the younger boys, the younger kids. And like, I keep relaying a lot of this to my life because this is very remnant of my life because these are also my ancestors. So looking at this, I can see my nephew or see all the other little boys I went to school with. And I was like, yeah, not much has changed. Little Hopi boys will always find something to scribble on or doodle on, or that may not be what they're doing, but I can always see a Hopi boy bent over drawing something, doodling away, because I feel like most Hopi boys are just artists in that sense. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And same way with this one. This one is just girls learning how to do what women, like girls do, like the sewing, the cooking, how to take care of that. And 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 such, excuse me. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And along with home ec, I know a lot of ladies know how to bake, or some of them, just kidding. But baking is one essential thing I have come to learn is important for a Hopi lady, because we're constantly baking for something, for a dance, for a wedding, for to pay back for a partner, for so many things. So learning how to bake a cake, a pie, or anything like that is pretty fundamental, because you never know when you're going to have to be the one who has to whip out a cake real quick. So there's a lot of girls, Hopi girls and table girls, who know how to bake pretty well. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Excuse me. And this is also a very young teacher. Her name is Nancy. I can't quite remember her last name right now, but this is Nancy, and she is teaching world geography and world history to her class, as you can tell by the European map she has pulled out, and also the Australia map pulled out. And if I'm remembering correctly, her class is 5th and 6th graders. You can go to the next slide. Um, and this teacher, she is teaching, I believe, 3rd, 4th grade. But what's very interesting about this one, like I said, these are around between 1944 and 1952. So she is explaining war, like different kind of like just in general what war history is. So in her hand, she is explaining to her class the different kind of warplanes that have been shown or out and about from World War II. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And next, we're going to dive into one of my favorite topics. If you guys haven't noticed, is Hopi ladies, Hopi women. Um, our our tribe is a matriarchal society, so we take after our mom. We take our mom's clan. We go with our mom's family. So I wanted to take some time to show my appreciation to Hopi ladies like this, where my grandma was like, "Yeah, I remember Saya would go down, wash, use these." My other grandma told us they used to get washed in these same kind of bins. So these ladies are at Sangopo Day School using the laundry facility. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And I just can never see a house without uh, a line, coastline, because summertime you just see a bunch of clothes flapping around, because that just seems to be better to wear clothes, because you have free air, you have a free dryer outside. You can go to the next one. And like today, laundry just never stops. And these ladies just go down, spend the day down there washing their clothes, hang them out to dry, and go ahead and go to the next slide. And since cars weren't quite readily available and the trails weren't quite ready for cars, get a mamukbi, a little sheet or something, nicely pile your clothes in there and throw it on your back and start walking up the trail. So the strength that these ladies have is so insane. I walk the first Mesa Trail sometime, and when I get winded, I remind myself, there was ladies who went down these trails to go get water at the very bottom. And I'm walking up with nothing. So if they could do it, I can do it too. And um, I feel like it's just a great representation of what Hopi ladies always carrying so much. There's usually put so much on them to keep their families going and just keep the household up and keep everybody up, that they're used to carrying heavy stuff on their backs like that. And it just makes sense for some reason. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And same way with like a mother doesn't really let her kid go somewhere scary by themselves. And I love this because I'm not sure if this is her child's first time at the dentist, but it seems that no matter how many times you go to the dentist, you just feel like you need your mom. And I love that she's there with her Mary braid, standing there in her shawl, just really watching, probably just like, I've never seen somebody work in somebody's mouth quite like that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And either she was like, look, son, it's not that bad. I'm doing it too. Or her son convinced her. Either way, I always love seeing mothers just being there for their kid like that. And these photos were so heartwarming for me to find because the photo before this one very much shows what it means to have a mother's love. Go ahead and go to the next one. And one of the great things the Spaniards brought to us was peaches and apricots and sheep and cattle. Um, so a snack that a lot of us like to have is dried peaches. And how would you get dried peaches without a dehydrator? Just lay them out on the rocks and the sun will do the rest. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And same way here too. You can, any time for two Hopi ladies to congregate and do a task to gossip is always a great time. So here, this is at the bottom of Sepalavi, and it's just a mother and her two kids out on a, you can tell it's a windy day, just drying out their peaches. And excuse me, go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is titled Hopi Barbecue, and it makes me smile big because I never thought of calling anything a Hopi barbecue, even though that's what we do a lot. Family dinners, dinners on the mesa, dinners for ceremonies. There is always just a bunch of food. Even if it's not ceremonial wise, if it's just going out for a cattle, if you take the women with you for a cattle ride or anything, they will make sure there's a whole buffet. They will make sure there is so much food or drinks or anything. And best believe that tent was filled with laughter and so many gossip was shared. And that's all I can say is I have learned that gossiping is the best way for women to get information out. And one of the funny things I always hear from guys is, oh, you ladies, how do you find this out before we even tell you? It's like we hear, we see, and that's why I always think you can't get away with much in any village because somebody knows you and sees what you're doing. You can go ahead and go to the next photo. And this this is very interesting. I just learned about plastering your floor. I talked about plastering your houses and everything, but this to me, I was very interested in because I was like, what do you mean you plaster your floor? And I've always wondered like how they did their floors a long time ago because the houses I go into currently, they have the same thing like the tiles. So I just always thought it was a dirt floor, but she's using a mud plaster and she's gonna go in with a river rock and use water to go ahead and smooth it down because I'm pretty sure that's a ramp up into another room, so she needs it to be seamless. And you can see her two plaster buckets right in front of her, and then she has her bowl with all of her mud that she's probably gonna use. You can go to the next slide. And a little joke that I think that's kind of an inside joke is, do you grind with a stone or do you grind with a hand crank? If you grind with a hand crank, you're a cheater. But that's just a little joke that I always hear. But they still give you the same result. You can get really fine cornmeal if you just keep using the grinding stone and bring it back up and grind. And the same way with a hand crank. The hand crank is what I know a little bit more of, but it gives you the same it gives you the same effect. And either way, either way, Hopi ladies like, as long as it can get me cornmeal, I don't matter. It don't matter. Go ahead and go to the next one. And then same way here, I wish I had gotten her last name, but this lady's name is Carla, and she is from the village of Masangnavi. In the picture on the right, it's her and I believe her daughter. They're getting their blue meal together and grinding that. So on the left side, she could go ahead and use it to make biki. Excuse me. And what's right above her is moho, which is used to bring your cornmeal back around or dust it off from the stone. And that's quite a lot that she has. So she's a rich lady in that way too. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is traditionally how meals were sat and ate. You would just sit on the floor, put down a tablecloth and put your food down and go ahead and just get right into it. Dip your bread into the stew, take your finger. There's different ways men and women are supposed to eat with their fingers. So you'll go ahead and just take your finger, grab it, and no bowls, no spoons, no forks, no plates, just a family sharing a meal. And it could be this small, or it could be like my grandpa's family from a while back. They had to have a long tablecloth put out because they were a large family. And in the same photo, if you look right above the man's back, that is where she was plastering her floor. So, and it's all done. And she probably sat down and made dinner for her family. Let's go to the next one. And this, if you are from Polaka, you will know anytime someone is like, it's by the burnt store. For me, for the longest time, I'm like, what is the burnt store? Where is it? And why do you guys call it that? So this is the Polaka store. And like its name states, it burnt down, but this was the first Polaka store that a lot of people would go to. And I was trying to find out if that is a gas pump or a water pump out front. I found no answers. I believe it may just be a water pump. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And along with stores, this is the inside of Heosukakaga store that is right below the village of Masangnavi and Sapalavi. The building itself is still standing, but it's currently not in use. So I only have a handful of memories being in that store, but it does kind of have a juxtaposition of like, that's on the reservation that looks like it's in a town or it's like the border town over. So small things like this, I have just great reminders that we're not just like going from 1800s to now and not having a history in between that. And this is great showing how much the Hopi people are growing along with America, because this could also be a store taken anywhere else. And it's just wonderful to see a store that I've known be closed for so long and to be able to see how brightly and how it was started out. We can go to the next slide. And now we talked about the women, talked about stores, and now let's talk about the men. I love Hopi men so much because one thing that sticks out for me is older Hopi men, they're just stern, they're quiet, they're reserved, but they are some of the hardest working men I know. And I grew up with two very hardworking men, and getting to see that our Hopi men weren't just, out and about doing whatever. They helped build our communities. This is the Palaka survey crew to get the highway started through Palaka. So like Highway 264. I believe they're actually surveying not the main highway, but if you know anything about Palaka, it's the road that kind of goes in the back that is used more for like the neighborhood. You can go to the next photo. And this photo is the main highway. Um, right where that black truck is what would be the turnoff to go up First Mesa. So this is what the Palaka Highway first started out looking like. And this is all thanks to our Palaka survey crew. Let's go to the next slide. And you can't get a road started without a grader. So here is one of the Hopi graders who was hired to go through and just grade the road to make it nice and flat for them to continue making the road. They constructed the Palaka Highway all the way from there up Sangopa down the backside to Araibi, all within about a 4 or 5 year span, I believe. Go ahead and go to the next slide. You can't have machinery without having a mechanic. And looking at his big old truck, this man was probably a mechanic for the heavy machinery, but this is also another Hopi man, another mechanic, or the same mechanic, I'm sorry. And go ahead and go to the next slide. And getting away from machinery and stuff like that, one thing that a lot of Hopi men do, they're ranchers. My dad is a rancher. I grew up with my grandpa going to the ranch. I know about cattle a little bit. So we're farmers, but I also just know we're ranchers because there's so many ranches out here. There's so many cowboys. You can go to the next slide. That, excuse me, that there's so many like space out here. I haven't got the chance to find out how many ranches there are, but it's just very, very to think of how much of these jobs are still around for us today. Cattle, like I said, was introduced to us by the Spaniards, but we still managed to learn how to wrangle them and learned how to herd them, butcher them, and what we could use their hides for, and what all the parts of those cattle we could use, not just for to eat and clothing, but ceremony-wise. I don't know what they're used for because that's not my knowledge. Let's go to the next one. Along with the cattle is the sheep. Sheep are very important. They're used in stew along with the cows. And this is behind Badger Butte. Later on, you're gonna see a couple photos from me that is the same butte, but from the front. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Most sheep, you round your sheep up, and then you're gonna go ahead, load them up into your trailer. Go ahead and go to the next one. And then you just go with your sheep and ship them off for auction. If you need the money, if you just gotta get rid of your sheep, that's something I got a chance to do, as well as go to a cattle auction out in Sun Valley and just seeing how much sheep and cattle. I only showed 5 of these cattle and the sheep, but the collection I got these from, there is so much sheep. There is so many different places where the corrals were. One photo I realized I didn't include, as you could see the sheep corral on the side of the mesa. Same way on First Mesa, when you look down, you see rocks that are in a square that used to be corrals for the sheep. So they would go out and graze out in the open land too, but if they're needed, they would be kept pretty close on the side of the mesas. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is Sylvan T. Nash. Not men weren't only working outside. There was men who worked at the Hopi, at the Kings Canyon Hospital. And what he's doing is he's sterilizing his jars and stuff like that. And I just wanted to show that, like I said, not all Hopi men work outdoors. We also have men like this who work on the inside. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And this I'm very excited to talk about because this is the Hopi village at Belmont. or Camp Navajo. And Camp Navajo is located about 15 miles outside of Flagstaff going towards Los Angeles. It's a 44 square mile military base that was created right after the Pearl Harbor attack. They wanted to have a military base that was close enough to the West Coast, but far enough from the coastline that the Japanese couldn't come and shoot up the military base. The military base was mainly used for ammunition, I believe. Um, and if anybody knows the history of Camp Navajo, you can go ahead and let me know. I um, didn't get as much in depth with it as I could, but I do know Flagstaff, before it exploded in population, was only a watering stop for the Pacific Railroad. And once this military base was constructed, they needed people to come in and help, help maintain and manage and give work, like just give um, a place for people to work. So I heard two different numbers. Between 2,500 and 2,700 Navajos were brought in to also work here, with 1,000 Hopis also brought in to help maintain and work around this military base. And because of their help, they were able to get it running, get it going. And then on top of that, the Navajos like had their own village. They built their hogans and stuff like that. And you can go to the next slide. And there was the Hopi village that had these homes, and the men could take their families. Like here is Miss Fred and her family in their house. There was one person I did want to talk to who did actually get to live there, but I didn't get the chance to. But if you want to learn more about that, I definitely recommend looking up Belmont or Camp Navajo. The history behind it is very interesting, and I'm just not doing justice to their history. But after the whole war, Camp Navajo is still standing. It was successful in that way that they were able to keep it open due to both Native tribes and other Native tribes, to keep it open after the war. And currently today, it's a training facility. So that is a history I had no idea about, that there was a whole Hopi village there, that the Navajos were also there helping. And then one very interesting thing was they did have some prisoner of wars transported to this camp. But interestingly enough, those prisoner of wars ended up helping with the military instead. So we can go ahead to go to the next slide. And I wanted to include Fred Caboti, or Fred Caboti. Gabodi is the English sounding way to say it. If you wanted to put a Hopi accent on it, it's Fred Gabodi with a P, not a B. But when you also look up Fred, this is the first image that you have. It's from his Wikipedia. It's like the only Google image you have. But with Milton Snow, go ahead and go to the next slide. Milton Snow was able to be there and capture Fred Caboti teaching his students. And he's a very well-known painter, silversmith, but most importantly, out here, I believe he's more known as a teacher. And he's right there sitting on the bottom left. And sitting next to him is Paul Sifke, another silversmither. And these lovely men surrounding him, they're veterans of the war, and they were granted a GI Bill to have Fred Caboti instruct them in silversmithing and weaving and drawing and painting. Let's go to the next one. And so, like this, these are the Hopi trademarks. They're going through the different clans and how you go, what they represent, how you go ahead and drawing them and such, and how to incorporate it into your own work, into your own designs. Let's go to the next one. And like so, these men, I'm pretty sure, are showing off their clans. excuse me. And some of these clans, I was very surprised to read because there are some clans who have kind of gone extinct or they just don't have enough people in them. So Fred Kabodi is actually from Hopevilla, and he is from the Bluebird clan family. I'm so sorry. Bluebird clan. Let's go to the next one. And same way, here is Fred and Paul showing how to hammer down. Uh, I the description was very vague, but I'm pretty sure they're showing them how to hammer with what is that called? Silversmithing, hitting with a hammer, like sort of like blacksmithing. Can we go to the next one? And here is Fred again, just going one-on-one with the student. And this one, they are doing silversmithing. I'm assuming it's a ring with how small it is. So Fred Kabodi's classes were pretty small, pretty intimate. So these men were lucky enough to get this one-on-one with a very, very well-known and very great artist. Let's go to the next one. Same way here, you have Paul showing another student how to grind down with a rock. And you have Fred looking on, and it's just so interesting to be able to see Fred in this light, because even like I looked him up, you get that first image, but then you get his artwork, which is great to see. But sometimes it's really great to see the artist at work and seeing them and the element that they're well known for. Let's go to the next one. And then same way here, they get a close up with Paul and Fred on drawing, on painting, on composition, on how to get things done right, or just help them find what it means to be a Hopi artist, or what it means to be out there making these jewelries or these paintings and telling Hopi stories through them. Let's go to the next one. And along with his silversmithing and his paintings, he also did teach weaving. This is one of the only photos I came across showing him actually weaving and teaching another man how to weave. And I was blown away by these photos because I got to go to the Desert Watchtower and see his mural there, and being able to put a face to work that was so touching and important because he depicts our stories and stuff like that. It's great to finally put a face to a name. And I, excuse me, and I just found being able to really look at this and watch him. And another photo I didn't get to include was he hangs his own paintings up in his house, which I think is so cool. Because I believe if you hang up your own artwork, that's showing that yes, I am good enough to be shown in my own house for everybody to see. And I just love that he's one of our well-known artists. And let's go to the next one. This next set of slides are villages. The only village I was not able to find is Bakavi. And I simply chalked it up to Bakavi was not established when Milton Snow was out there photographing these. So we're gonna start from west to east. So this is Tsumovi looking from Tewa. Tewa is another village that I could not find within Milton Snow's collection, but this is looking from Tewa village to Tutumovi. I myself am from the village of Tutumovi, and I had to really decipher what I was looking at. But it's the very end part of Tutumovi. You don't see the whole village, but if you go to the next slide, you have Tutumovi Plaza, and right outside the plaza, you have Bunsi Hall. And Bunsi Hall is used for, it's just like a big old house for whoever needs it. There's Bunsi Hall, use it to your will. You can have people come in, have lunch here, feed people here. You can have dances here, like country dances and such like that, or family dinners. And Punti Hall is still very much standing today. The only real difference is there's an add-on and an awning added. Same way with the village, the Tutumovi village. Not much is different in the plaza. The very top part of that roof may have got updated, but for the most part, it still very much looks like this today. Let's go to the next one. And then the next one, we have the famous Walpi that everybody probably knows by now what Walpi looks like from this headway. Let's go to the next one. And then here we have Second Mesa, you have Masangnavi and Sapalavi, and you're looking at them from Sangopovi. And down there you can see a little bit fields, a little bit trees, maybe some orchards. Let's go to the next one. This is also the village of Masangnavi. You're standing right on the edge where you can see where people live on the top and the houses that are right on the bottom. And if you're looking straight across, you're looking at the village of Sangopovi, which these two images flipped. So from the last one, you're looking at the person who's looking at you from the last photo. Let's go to the next one. And this is the village of Sapalavi. It's right next to Masangnavi. If the way you can tell them apart is Masangnavi is slightly bigger, Sapalavi is slightly smaller with a bit more intense incline to get to the top. And if you look a little bit halfway up, you see some triangles. That is the old guidance center. At that time, it might have been new, but to me, it's old. It's no longer being in use. Let's go to the next one. And this is also Sapalavi, and currently there's a lot more houses, but this is also from Sapalavi, the lower level. If you go up where that rock is at the top and go back a little bit, then you'll get to the other portion of the village that has their plaza. Let's go to the next one. And this is Sangopovi from the air. So Sangopovi I find to be a rather large village. They're sprawled out a little bit more. So that's why I know they're a very, very large village. And this is also the same village where at the beginning it was showing the kids running down to their school. Let's go to the next one. And this is also Sangopovi, but while you're in the village. Let's go to the next one. And then this one is from, at a time, it was called New Oraibi. Currently, it's called Kukutsmovi, or if you can't say that, it's called K-Town. But this is right below where Oraibi stands, and this is also not too far from the Oraibi High School. Let's go to the next one. And I believe that Oraibi itself is just kind of a closed off village in general, because this is one of the only Oraibi photos that I could find. And this is a pretty old, I would say, house, considering there's the wagon when at this time automobiles were still around, but Oraibi is definitely just a very old, very ancient village, and I respect and understand why they're so closed off. Let's go to the next one. And then this is the village of Hopevilla. I myself have a little trouble trying to place Hopevilla that I know in this image, because this is the second most western village. And right across from them is Bakavi, but like I said, they weren't established around this time. Let's go to the next one. And I could not leave out Munkopi. This is our furthest west village that is right next to Tuba City. I believe this may have been before they split into Upper and Lower Munkopi. If I'm wrong, we're looking at Lower Munkopi right now. but I wanted to make sure I included them because out of all the villages, Munkopi doesn't get as much love too, like Table does. Um, but Munkopi is also very known for their beautiful gardens. When you're like when you're driving up the cliffs during the summertime, you can see some beautiful gardens and everything like that. It's just a shame that they're so far away from us. Let's go to the next one. Tutskwa. And that means just in a sense out here, like the Hopi Reservation, but like also everything. Um, Before I move on to my photos, there was something I wanted to talk about. Um, these are the photos that I love to look for, that I want to see from our ancestors. While looking for these photos, I did come across certain ones that were very sad to see. Certain ceremonies being depicted, certain kachinas being photographed, photographs in the kiva. Um, I did come across some of those, and to me, I do not feel right sharing them because when I do come across photos like that, I'll show them to somebody like, hey, look at this. And there's one phrase that always kind of comes up was, dang, they used to be able to get away with a lot of stuff with cameras, right? And I was like, yeah. Um, so going through Edward Curtis photos, there are photos that I did not want to include just because those are very sacred ceremonies that back when most people probably didn't understand what it meant to have those photographed. So um, with me, you're not going to ever see me sharing Kachinas, anything ceremony, anything where you need to be a part of a society. Um, you'll never see those from me. I'm not that kind of a Hopi photographer. I don't want to exploit my people in that sense because we are a very private people. We're trying to keep as much of our traditions going and don't quite want to share them with non-Hopis because we've been burned in that way. And this we've been open before, but stuff like that has very much closed us off. And before I continue on, I just wanted everybody to know that if you do see photos from Hopi that depict something that doesn't feel right, just scroll past it because you're not meant to see it. That's all I can say. But I'll go ahead and jump into my photography as I've been talking for a while. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the village of Sungupuvi. So somewhere in those foothills, closest to the mesa, is that Sungupuvi Day School. You cannot see it from this road. It's a little hidden, but that is the village of Sungupuvi, the mesa, and that is Highway 264. And that's probably my favorite highway to drive because of how windy it is. Let's go to the next one. And these next, I believe, 4 are from First Mesa, where I grew up. And seeing these rocks like such, they're very much alive. If you can see that, they shine so much, they're sturdy, that they stood the test of time even though they're falling. Let's go to the next one. And like I said, whenever I'm walking up the trails, I think of my ancestors. And there's this small, slight trail going up, and this is also the very end of First Mesa. And at the very top is Walpi, but you can't quite see. So you like the Singopal view when you have foothills that you can just go and climb around, but you got to be careful. You don't know when the rocks are going to fall or anything like that, or what petroglyphs you might find, or if you stumble across something, you just got to be careful. Next slide. And this is the halfway point up First Mesa. And what I love about Walpi was over the summer, I found out that Walpi wasn't actually at the top of the mesa before. It used to be a little bit lower, kind of where I'm at, but on the backside, I believe. And if you look closely enough, you can see the village of Walpi muddled in with the rocks at the very top. If you can see wires, that's the very top, and that's a couple different kivas that I don't know which are which, but stuff like this is beautiful of I find beautiful like architectural wise of how all these houses are able to blend in into the rocks, and you would have to kind of take a moment to be like, oh yes, there is structures up there. Let's go to the next one. And this is just a view out on the end of First Mesa. There's not much else I can say about it. You are looking towards what would be Low Mountain Junction. There's a road that way that goes to Piñon. But this is also towards the end of First Mesa, which is a very challenging hike to do, but it's very rewarding. Let's go to the next one. And now we're in color. We moved out from black and white, and now we are in color. This is the entirety of First Mesa. There's, I don't know how to explain where all those last photos were, but all those last photos were taken on this mesa at different various points going up. And when I say home, like when I say I'm going home or I want to be home, this is what I mean. I want to be here where I can see the clouds and where I can see the mesa I grew up under. Let's go to the next one. And then this is the village of Walpi from a different angle. So the way First Mesa was set up, this is at the very end, facing directly Walpi. And you can kind of see the buildings, the houses up there, but this is definitely a side of Walpi that not a lot of people see, because even my mom and my grandma are like, where's that at? And I'm like, it's on the dirt road way back there. So and the landscape changed itself because you can see the water towers. But I was also told by a teacher when I was younger that when she was small, there used to be a really large rock not too far from those water tanks, and they would go running around there, and at some point that rock just tipped over and it's just no longer there. Let's go to the next one. And this is when I said that with the sheet picture that is Badger Butte, the little dark hump is Badger Butte, and those lights at the bottom is our Hopi Healthcare Center. I love the sky with the landscape out here because it's big, it's vast, it's open. There's nothing stopping you from seeing all the clouds in the sky and seeing how endless it is. From where I'm standing to probably get to Badger Butte is probably about a good 10 miles, I would say, give or take. But this was right after a rainstorm. And it was this blue, this purple, and I really don't know anywhere else that has such dramatic sunsets with clouds like this. Let's go to the next one. And then this is Second Mesa. You have Masangnavi, Sapalavi. Importantly, you can see Corn Rock right below the moon. And I really love this because it's quiet. Looking at it, you just can tell it's quiet. And there's the beautiful sky with clouds, but when it's just an endless blue day like this, it feels like the world is open and the sky is gonna swallow us up, but it's not much it can do. You know, most of my life has been blue and brown because of the landscape and bright pink and such like that. Let's go to the next one. And this is what I mean by pink and orange and blue and brown. This is also Second Mesa. Second Mesa, for some reason, is very photogenic. Whenever I go out, I get the most beautiful photos from Second Mesa. So you have the same two villages, but you also get Samopovi, on the left side, and you can see the clouds just, or the rain clouds going from one village to the other to go water them as well. Let's go to the next one. And this is Samopove from a different point of view. All those houses you see, that's the village. That's the road you gotta come up, and twilight, dusk, all those beautiful times is when I feel like the sky and the land really dance with one another and really complement each other most of the time. Sometimes it feels like the sun just wants to go down and I can't have those beautiful light times with the clouds. They just want to go. Let's go to the next one. Along with showing the ranchers from earlier, this is my dad's ranch, and this is called Nipple Butte for obvious reasons. And I wanted to show the Hopi landscape isn't also just brown. It's also this beautiful green once the summer and spring showers come through and water everything, everything just turns green. It goes from yellow to green. And let's go to the next one. And like this, you have the clouds touching the ground, just rolling in while you're trying to get your cattle together, and you're fighting with like try to get out from the ranch before all these clouds roll in. But it's just something to be in awe of, because like, how did we get so lucky that we got to stay here and enjoy this beauty? Let's go to the next one. And then I just wanted to show off my dad's two little cows and his butte, basically. But like I said, ranching has been a part of our men for a good long while. So when you're actually coming from on 87 out to the Hopi reservation, once you pass the line that divides the Hopi and Navajo reservation, on each side of the road, it's all ranches. Like all of that land is ranches, and if you see cows, that's somebody's ranch. Let's go to the next one. And this photo is one that University of Arizona bought for me. And this shows Walpi, but with the ever-present dogs, Mesa dogs, Res dogs, whichever one you want to call it. No matter where you go, no matter what village you go to, be it top or bottom, you're gonna find a dog. And those dogs will follow you just to protect you. And they probably know more trails than most people, because they just roam. And like in one of the cattle pictures, they had a cattle dog. So we've always had dogs around us for some reason. And the next one is also another image bought by U of A. And this is Walpi, the backside of Walpi, which is definitely a photo that a lot of people have not been able to see or view unless you've actually been in the village yourself. Same way, like that endless blue sky with the houses reaching up to it is so breathtaking, because it's such an intense blue whenever you do get to see a blue sky like that. And I think there's one more. Yeah, Escalade, thank you. There's one portion of the reservation that I didn't touch on because I didn't get a chance to include it, is Kings Canyon. I talked about the boarding school, but here we have rather large trees like this, but only in the wash. And this is my brother and my niece walking through the Kings Canyon wash, and there's so many different places out here that you could venture and be like, this is the same place. Like there's sceneries change and such. But yeah, thank you. I hope I made a lot of sense. I took a lot of y'all's time. And I just hope you guys were able to comprehend my babbling. Thank you. Everyone have a good night.